All right, let's take a look at it. 1996 Night Syndrome. So, yeah, 1996, I was doing a original comic called Night Syndrome again, by 8 Ball Comics. And it takes, like I said, just as it does today, it takes place 357 million years in the future. So here we start off, and you can see the world how it is. You have these gigantic Venus flytraps that are the size of skyscrapers. I mean, and here you have a person that's, flying on a glider because they're actually reaping fungus and fruit and all that to eat because they're colonists. Now here's another panel. Here you can see that in the background is what used to be the Sears Tower, but now it's just encrusted with all kind of mountains and mountainous ore and rust and all these other things. And here you see uh, Venus Wolf right there collecting some samples in this little black oil slick type of river, but it's not oil, it's actually some kind of biofluid. So you get an idea of how the world looks. Now let's take a look at our characters. Now we've seen them just in another comic not too long ago that I showed. You have Knights Versus, and here you have Jack Shackleton, who is a futuristic Knight Templar, cyber tech Templar, and then you have the Hospitalis symbol with the rose. And you have Jack Shackleton, Vesper Eden, Sir Vasquez, and Ginger Claire Morgan. Here you have the Panda Sisters, who are Wakani witches. And here we have two of their henchmen, enhanced power, enhanced strength, and some of the cyber ghosts, which are ninjas. They're futuristic ninjas that are trying to, they're trying to steal this robotic woman called the Soulbot, which the Knights are also looking to gain. Now, here's a little bit of what it says previously in Night Syndrome. Now, of course, there would be words here, and you can see some of the enemies that we're fighting in the previous comic books of theirs, which I drew and written myself as well. There's one there, and there's here is where Jack he finds Ginger Claire Morgan, but that's before he cut her hair and gives her a cybernetic arm, and she's running through the wild, basically naked. Now, the reason why they're running naked, other than just having an erotic feel, is because in this particular comic, they can control their nerves and feelings and toughen their skin. So a lot of times they don't feel any pain. That's one of their powers. And now here, Jack Shackleton, aka Saberjack, is going to fight one of the leaders of the Cyber Ghost. And you can see the Cyber Ghost has a katana, a futuristic katana, and he has a long sword, long blade, chain sword actually, a chain sword. Um, so he gives her the gun while she's in the background, and he's fighting this Cyber Ghost leader. You can see that here. And of course, Jack Shackleton has this kind of flexible chromium armor, so it's all silver chrome. Okay, I like the John Borman version of Excalibur. That's really where I got the idea for the techno armor. Now here you have some panda that are controlled by this kind of rabies virus that are controlled by the witches, and they send these pandas out first to see if they can smell out the knights to kill them. And obviously, one of the pandas senses and smells Ginger Claire Morgan and Jack Shackleton. So you might be wondering why Ginger Claire Morgan is on a leash, is because she's still wild yet. She doesn't know how to speak. He found her, and she's wild. She goes in these fantastically violent fits. Okay, so Jack pulls out his percussion guns and he shoots one of the bears right through his mouth. Blam, kills him. Now in the background, here is the Soulbot, the Cyberchrist Soulbot, which has a lot of old world technology embedded in it that they're trying to regain. And they have her locked up in a bunker. Of course, this is the Soulbot. Here, the cyber, but just she's not a cyborg. She's an actual full robot. But AI. Put it that way. By day, I knew AI back in 1996. Okay, so then here you have the cyber ghost coming into play. And what they have is, he sees them, and he has a extendable. You can see the sword extends. It's a chain sword, and these witches, these Salem alchemist witches that are doing some kind of ritual in the snow, and they killed one of their henchmen there. They're calling out some kind of creature from this grave, this super enhanced creature from the grave here. And as that's happening, you have Saberjack, which is Jack Shackleton, still fighting with the leader of the Cyber Ghost Ninjas. And in the background, you can see another ninja with his sai right there. And then he, Cyberjack is, Saberjack is kind of a cross between Spider-Man and Batman. You know what I mean? He has this thermal cloak here, but he's also very agile, and he knows how to use a sword and armor. And he ends up doing this wild turn that cuts off their leader's arm. See that here? Okay. Meanwhile, Crocodile is Vesper Eden, who is chasing these witches down a tunnel, which is a mausoleum. So, thing to note here is all these knights, the ones that are Templars are they have different weapons. She has an axe and another kind of this strange. It's a chainsaw too. She catches one of the Panda sisters and cuts her head off. She cuts her head right off. It's right there. And so that's Vesper Eden following through this mausoleum tunnel of these witches, and she's kind of bloodied up herself there. Okay, so that done, they're calling for backup, and they end up calling these main witches, which are muck dolls, what they call muck dolls. They could change their form. Here they're in their human form, and they're waiting. The solstice moon is out there rising, and they're doing a ritual necrotis, and they're doing all kind of different things to enchant these kind of artifacts to try to use them against the Templar Knights. So here, further back is Saint X's father, which is Jack Shackleton's father, which is Saint X. Had that wrong. And by the way, I didn't finish the end of some of this. You can see I didn't finish on purpose. He's in Chicago, but Chicago at that time we're trying to figure out how we're going to degrade it. The buildings weren't sure at the time, so I did all this part. Then I was going to do the buildings, what level of degradation on them, and then here they showed Saint X was a lot more powerful, ripping these people apart with his bare hands. He's just ripping their fucking heads off here. We go back to the fight by the mausoleum, and underneath that mausoleum, there's this woman, Shasta, and she's one of the leaders of the witches that knows how to enchant all these artifacts. And she has a henchman. By the way, those are fake wings. It's not a real wing. It's not a mutant, but he wears those wings just in ritual. That's how that is. You would see that when it was red, and they're underneath these tunnels that are underneath the mausoleum. This kind of ancient. You can see the old Viking boat and stuff they have in there, and they have kind of a grim sense of humor. These guys. Here is a pencil version of Jack Shackleton and Saint X here. So this is 1996 right here, and they're discussing some really weird space, like a weird land that's on the east side of Gothalebra, what they call, and you can see that there's all kind of creatures and some weird merging of the plants and animals there. And you have another witch who's more of a kind witch. All she does is she watches over the agriculture and the creatures, and she brings about new species. That's what she does. So here, I ended up having to do it on a different paper because I remember I was doing this live out there. So we have it's kind of some more of these kind of dream sequences of these Salem alchemists when they dream when they were normal, because they were normal women at one time. And here she's going through this kind of cultural cube, and she's having this kind of vision of when they used to be normal, when they were normal women, and they kind of long to be that because their witchhood is a little bit of a curse as well. I mean, they enjoy it, but it's also a curse. So then you have Jack Shackleton when he's stripped of his armor, when he gets caught underneath the mausoleum. This is a scene where they're underneath the mausoleum. He catches one of the Salem alchemist witches, and he's got a boner, bro, because he's excited and shit. And he's got the new type of chainsword there, as you can see, and like you can see all the pipe work from the old city where the old city was at. And this was a trip. I was drawing it. I was doing a lot of stuff at the studio, and there were some execs that were like, "Well, this guy's too talking about me." That I draw I'm too uncensored and too violent. So anyway, so then we had Ginger Claire Morgan in her armor, and she's got the metal arm, and so now she's prepared to fight these fucking ninja too. In the background, you see there's a big motherfucker there, big ninja, and he's wearing a weird kind of Chinese hat right there though, even though the ninja are Japanese. And there's the mausoleum in the back where they're fighting, and where I told you those people live underground, and he's fighting people and he's cutting off motherfuckers' heads too. He's cutting off people's heads too. Now talking about the visions of the witches from the comic, and like I say, their powers are they're really based on the real order of witches that we belong to, which is the Wakani. But this is a fictional, far exaggerated version where they use all these kind of ritual, enchanted emblems here and enchanted. You see, this is like a voodoo doll thing, and they're using that in magic. They're controlling some of the, because they have to fight both the Cyber Ghost ninjas and the other Knights Templar and all that. So they're doing all these kind of voodoo-esque, kind of Hargoth rituals that are actually controlling some of the people when they're out there fighting. And you have that there. They started to talk about how Jack Shackleton how he was killed and started regenerating himself when he came out of a grave. And then you have, kind of a little shot of the witches trying to interfere with that process. Okay. We were going back and forth. I was talking to the guy, and we're doing a lot of independent comics. I go, well, you know what? Maybe I should do them in different mediums. I could do them in pencil, and break out so it's not always ink, and so here I did one of the Alchemist witches in pencil, and I used some charcoal for the hair. So that wasn't the best technique in 1996, but whatever. And then you have here, we got some of the famous characters. You got Saint X and his woman, the four-breasted, the four-titty Vixen Chalet right here. They're both from Chicago. So Chicago rules. He has his chain sword right there, and that's him and her. Saint X and Vixen Chalet. And then we have kind of, I would do these letters, and the comic world trips out on graffiti. I'm gonna tell you that right now. They just trip out on how graffiti looks. And I did this Night Syndrome, and I really did this readable. And they were like, "Well, it's not readable enough." I go, "Well, yeah, it's kind of supposed to be not readable, but anyway." So this was Oblivion Saints. That was the name of the chapter, the one I just showed you. And then you have Saint X right here in his Saint X costume with his bionic tail and so forth, and he's holding a skull of an enemy that he ripped his fucking head off, literally with his bare hands, is out there. So here, the thing about this stuff, I'm gonna tell you this. I don't know, man. I'm older now, and really what it is, I'm gonna bring this to you in a weird way. Listen, bro. Let's say this. I really don't know why I had to. This was when I did this in 1996 is when a lot of underground comics came out. They were gaining real stuff, and a lot of that stuff was very violent. There was a lot. I don't know why. Basically, what they did was said the comic that I had was fantastically violent and very obscene, and all this other stuff. It was obscene and had too much taboo stuff in it. And maybe they're right about that shit. I don't know. Maybe they weren't ready for it in 1996. I know there was a lot of people who had a lot of great stuff during that time, and probably before that, including people like like Tim Vigil and I think Sarah Jones and stuff like that. That they had all these really underground, super violent cartoony stuff, real detailed. Kind of, I had my own style too, but I don't know why they did. Put it this way, I'm gonna end it like this. Basically, I didn't want to, like, part of the of Ohm Heart and Night Syndrome, which is a comic I put out, and it's been banned 4 times, is that the violence and the sexuality and the tabooness and all this really strange stuff, that's part of the comic. That's part of the allure. If you take that away from there, because I have really original characters too. You take that away from there, it's going to lose a lot of its allure and gusto. And basically, that's what happened. Another banned book in the making.